Good evening. This is Defacto Review, a weekly analysis of social and economic issues in Mongolia by columnist and economist Mr. Jarasakhan.
Good evening.
And I'm your host, Zagit Dusum. Today's topics are reforming state-owned enterprises, police attacking a journalist, and on Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada. Going on to our first topic about reforming state-owned enterprises. During the plenary session of the 2022 spring session of the Parliament, the members of the Parliament agreed to discuss the draft law on state and local administration-owned companies and mandated the Economic Standing Committee to prepare for that. At the session, members of Parliament clarified many issues related to all state-owned enterprises that are at the center of attention. Their finances, debts, and productivity were questioned. Director of the State Property Policy and Regulation Agency, Tingil, said that by the end of the year 2021, fully and partially state-owned legal entities owned 53.4 million MNT in assets, earned 10.6 trillion MNT in revenue, and made 1 trillion MNT profit. He also pointed out that 105 state-owned companies are compiled annually and have a total of 18 trillion MNT in debt. Mr. Jarasakhan, asset, profit, revenue, and debt made by the state-owned companies are now clear, but can you tell us what this means exactly?
Well, that's some reform that Mongolia needs long time ago. Mm-hmm. And many parliamentarians did not want, and this time we are lucky to have this law will be discussed. Otherwise, it was always refused to discuss. So what exactly happening is there are some state-owned 170 companies, municipality-owned 270 companies. Mm-hmm. So total that some 440 companies, each has board with 10 members. So it is to be reformed, too many, first. Second, we have a state enterprises agency. That agency is running, as you said, compiling facts of only 105 companies. So the remaining 300 are out of control, or we don't know what exactly is happening. Mm-hmm. Total debt of these companies is today 18 trillion MNT. Mm-hmm. It's a substantial amount. And at the current exchange rate, it's around $6 billion. Mm-hmm. This is 1/5 of all Mongolian foreign debt amount. Mongolia total foreign debt is, by the quarter first of 2022, is 34 billion. Uh-huh. And it is increasing. Mm-hmm. Year-on-year base, now it is $1.5 billion increase. Mm-hmm. That's very alarming. Mm-hmm. And government owns total 8.4 US dollar foreign debt. Mm-hmm. It's 1/4 of all Mongolian debt. Mm-hmm. And some of the state-owned agencies' debt is not included in that, just the size to compare. Right. And there are foreign companies which must owe total. They altogether owns 12.6 billion US dollar debt. Oyutla alone around 10 billion. So Oyutla has a good deposit, and hopefully it is not that big alarming amount. Erdinis Mongolia, which is the largest, one of the largest state-owned company, has 5.4 trillion Turiks. State Bank, Mongolia has government bank now, 3.4 billion trillion MNT. Development Bank of Mongolia 3. So Mongolian Railway 1.5, Erdinet 990 billion, UB Railway 540 billion MNT. Yes, all state-owned enterprises. And the largest income made by Erdinet, the long-standing copper concentrate company. And they made also a profit with 900 billion Turiks. Mm-hmm. So in that way, as you see, the role of state-owned enterprise in the economies keep growing. Mm-hmm. And with that, the competitiveness of the whole country, because state-owned is not You cannot compete with the state-owned companies in that particular field. So too much state participation in Mongolia in the economy, and it keeps growing, not efficient, not productive, and very bad for competition. That's what it's about.
All state-owned companies are now, it used to be controlled by a law that is solely, or company law, but now there's a new law. What is the difference?
This is the new draft.
New draft.
Which will be discussed, and if it's approved, for the first time, Mongolia will have specialized law for state-owned companies. Whether it's good or not, we will see. But however, there are several changes to be included. That the Minister of Justice explaining that, for example, state will make priority directions of development for next 4 years, every year. And then they will make very clear in which businesses will be the priority of the state. That's very strange also question itself. The state will do strategic businesses. There's also a question, which one is strategic businesses? And also energy, waste, management, heating, etc. The public purpose companies will be run by the state. Yeah, by nature, some infrastructure companies to be run by state because private companies cannot. They can do it, but it's more complicated. And what is the other change? The draft law says that they will merge as many as possible state-owned companies whenever it is possible. So they want to have a smaller number of state-owned companies. But however, the size will be larger. The other thing is, if state-owned enterprises leadership, board and executive team, if they do losses in a row for 2 years, then they will be replaced. I don't know how they will include this force majeure, what is happening usually in business. The next one is they want to make it's principal issue. Which businesses state will be in or not in? They will discuss it. And basically, the principle should be in this case, state should not do what the private sector can do, private companies can do. Whether this will be discussed or not approved, I don't know, but that's the principle of market economy. And also, during that discussions, they agreed to discuss that law, because in Mongolia they discuss it. If they agree to continue to discuss that law, the document comes back to the standing committee. They will prepare it, and they will bring it back to the plenary sessions discussions. If they vote for by just 51%, then this law will be officially the law. Looks like there will be very heated discussions when the law really comes as a draft. So we need to see the clear concept as they said before.
Now, the next topic is on police attacking a journalist. A Mongolian female journalist who'd been in the media sector for more than 10 years reported an assault by police officers last week. Her name is Girilma, and she's from News.mn, Mongolian news agency. And she reported that on June 9th, police officers assaulted her while on duty, destroying her documents, taking away her camera, microphone, and cell phone. She was also detained at the police station for 6 hours, not being allowed to make a medical or legal assistance calls. The General Police Department then inspected the case and found that a police officer did assault her and apologized to all journalists for violating the freedom of the press. And as a result, Deputy Chief of the General Police Department, Atonjaral, and Deputy Chief of the UB Police Department, Ayutbolt, will be getting a 20% pay cut for 3 months. In addition, head of the district's police department, Dampnyam, and a police officer, Dawadarj, will be demoted. Finally, one officer, Baing Bimb, was dismissed. My question to you, Mr. Jarasakhan, is why do these cases keep repeating? This is not the first time. According to Bargilma, the Mongolian journalist a representative or the president of the Mongolian Journalists Union. She said that this is not the first case that this has happened, and another journalist was also forcibly removed from the reporting area, and her equipments were cut off, and her belongings were confiscated.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's happening more frequently rather than before. What happens, what you just explained, and that at least they have apologized. It's not so bad, at least at the beginning, but it is not enough. Minister, by the way, our Ministry of Foreign Law and Internal Affairs. The name is very strange translation because in English it sounds Mongolian Ministry of Justice and Home Affairs, but in English, in Mongolian it sounds like just Ministry of Legislative and Minister for Law and Internal Affairs. So I would prefer they have the name, the word justice, Shotrogiyos, in their name. Well, anyway, there was another case, incident, where a peaceful demonstrator during this youth demonstration a couple of months ago, a young man was kicked, punched with foot by the police. And people, it was shown on public social media, and people were protested, and finally they have fired, at least the information, they fired the policeman, but it turned out they have not fired, they just replaced his job to the security officer at one of the offices, because his colleague were protecting him. Wow. So it shows how the system is not working in this country. In spite of all this happening and people's protest, these police people, security forces, people using a lot violence against ordinary people. You know, there was a 21st report by National Human Rights Commissions about human rights state in Mongolia.
Okay.
And last week, the parliament had discussed that report. But observers say that they were really not paying proper attention to that report, which really says not only these cases, but also sexual assaults, harassments, even in the military.
Yeah, going off of that, why are they not doing enough to hold them accountable? Is demoting, dismissing, and cutting pays off, is it a realistic response?
No, that's why people are not happy with that. This is staying in a position. Policeman, next time the other one, they're just demoting a couple person, etc. There should be very strong disciplinary actions must be taken.
Okay.
More attacks are registered this kind of actions against journalists, and it is an attempt to shut down freedom of speech, which is so important for any country, for any democracy. Our journalists made a peaceful demonstration on June 13 on the Sukubata Square. They, by the way, demanding the stronger punishment for those police men who attacked and who violated the human rights. Not by chance, Mongolia got back by 22 ranks back last year in World Press Freedom Indexes report, and now we took 98th place, which is quite sad news for freedom of speech of Mongolia. So, according to, for example, Unur Tsitsig of Zarg.mn, who was at that demonstration, that behind each attack and insult against journalists, there are always some politician, high-ranking politician, according to her. Overall, we need to have a principal reform of that police structure. For example, in Georgia, they made a police reform. They examine each entry policeman. Every year they check their sense of human rights respect and give accordingly a certain score. And depending on that score, the policeman goes up or. Also, the chief police officer in Georgia is not nominated like in Mongolia, but when they are officially entitled to that position, public poll received about that person. If the public supports this man as integrity, with his integrity, etc., then the policeman is elected or nominated afterwards only, not like in Mongolia. The other thing I would like to note that Mongolian police, all their training, preparations are made based on the Russian school, KGB, whatever other structure, where the democracy is not in function. That's why our police forces to be trained in democratic countries like U.S., Western democracy, Germany, England. So this kind of cardinal, substantial reform is expected. They should do it. Otherwise, we will not rid of all this kind of violations against human rights, including journalists.
Those are great examples and suggestions. Okay, now let's move on to our next topic. It is on Mongolians in Toronto to attend the PDAC Mining Conference. The 90th Annual International Investors Conference began in June 13th, organized by the Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada in Toronto. And the Mongolian delegation is there. And to list a few, Member of Parliament Damdimnyam, Minister of Mining and Heavy Industry Yondong, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Mongolia to Canada Arumbalt, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Canada to Mongolia Catherine Ivkov. Representatives from Mongolian mining companies were also there. These include Ayutalga, Step Gold, Energy Resources, Irtnistandalga, Irtn Resources Development, and Xanadu Mines and ION Energy. My question to you is, can you just elaborate a little on what this conference is about and why this is important to Mongolians?
Well, this conference is a kind of a leading voice of the mineral exploration and development community of the world. Some 8,000 members around the world of all the sectors related to mining industry come. It's minimum, and these members and participants are at the non-COVID time. It was around 25,000. So quite a big community. And this PDAC is there to promote, is there's a globally responsible, vibrant, and sustainable mineral industry. Mongolians are participating since 2006. I was many times there, and we do every year our own presentation. But this time, as you said, 19th anniversary of this important convention, and it's happening after 2 years because of COVID, not functioning, not doing, and now in this year it comes in hybrid form. And on June 13 to 15, it is an in-person convention, and then from 28, 29, it will be online. Portion of it will happen. So just to celebrate 19th anniversary, it's quite a long time. By the way, we have recently also celebrated 100th anniversary of Mongolian mining industry in Mongolia. So they had a lot of things to talk, and that's what our ministers do. And, during this pandemic, many jobs lost, but however, the pandemic tested the resilience of the industry, and where this industry relatively quite well, plus also because just some precious metals price went twice high, so many mining companies have not lost jobs relatively. So It's happening also in Canada, because Canada is one of the most developed mining nation. For example, they have full capacity of developing, processing, reprocessing until the final products of 31 minerals. Mm-hmm. It's quite capacity, and they have a good financial infrastructure like Toronto Stock Exchange, which Mongolian ministry meets every year, because we have several companies listed on that very famous mining stock exchange. Mm-hmm. So as I said, Mongolia is participating since 2006, and because it's an opportunity for us to gain mutual understanding with between international investors, government agencies, and industry experts, also to share to share about the policies, plans implemented by the government of Mongolia, mm-hmm. and to exchange views on future actions. Mm-hmm. So Minister Yongdong, Minister of Mining and Heavy Industry Yongdong, exactly did the same, mm-hmm. and it was at the traditional forum of Mongolia at PDAC 2022, every year organized specifically for Mongolia, now run by people from Mongolia and also companies from Mongolia. This time it has happened exactly in the same manner.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us more of the specifics of mining for this year?
Yes, Mr. Yongdong had a lot to tell the investors and the mining community of the world, because this year the ministry had succeeded to draft a law, changes, new version of the minerals law, in the law on the mining exchange and law on the National Wealth Fund. Long planned and talked law, in which they're doing more conducive environment for businesses of mining. And the second thing is, it's happening after almost more than 10 years discussed, debated with OT, and the government of Mongolia has negotiated with OT, with the Rio Tinto about OT project, and reached a mutual understanding. Mm-hmm. It's actually very, very largest surprise and gift probably to the investors community. Mm-hmm. The third is Oyu Tolgoi mine is going successfully, and underground mine is proceeding normally as they have planned, and their first blasting operation had started. So after 2 years, we started to be almost the third largest copper mining nation in the world. Mm-hmm. There's another good news. And also Mongolia is supporting now creating legal arrangements to support the exploration of rare earth elements and other critical minerals. Critical meaning that those minerals needed for producing batteries, mm-hmm. because every car is moving into the electric one soon. The other thing is Mongolia is now encouraging geological and exploration research, as the demand for some minerals is expected to increase, mm-hmm. Due to this global climate change, these all new regulations. The other good news for community was, as the minister said, it's a railway. We have put connecting Tawan Talgoi railway with the Chinese border, mm-hmm. and the other part also already brought the railway line. So it will be connected this year, which will be a huge change in transportation of coal, and also mm-hmm. it will be more ecology friendly. Mm-hmm. And finally, they have agreed to make a power plant and water supply projects in the mining region in South Gobi, which we have talked for the last 20 years, and finally they have agreed, and hopefully they will, because this new power plant will replace import of Chinese electricity to OT, the largest copper project in the south of the country. So it will be very good news for Mongolia.
Wow. Many positive changes.
Yeah, just to name few.
Uh-huh.
So he had a lot of things to talk.
Do you think Mongolian mining will attract more foreign direct investment?
You know, this is a mining-driven economy. Now we are loosening the conditions, not in terms of restriction to any harm against the environment, but legal conditions. And 70% of foreign direct investment to this country is in the mining industry. And in at least next 5 to 10 years, Mongolia will go mostly with the mining, where we aggregate the most money for other industry. So we still need to attract foreign direct investment. And also, another reason why I expect more foreign direct investment coming is, for example, our larger export is coking coal, not thermal oil, thermal coal. Coking coal means it's a metallurgy coal, it's used for metallurgy. So that demand for that metallurgy will keep growing, in particular in China. So we will supply that. It's good news for Tawon Tolgoi mine. Secondly, about the so-called critical mines. These are lithium, cobalt, copper, critical for producing these batteries we have mentioned. And there is a company called ION Energy. They explore for lithium in two AIMACs. Sukbata AIMAC, the project is called Bavra Mount Project, and Dorno AIMAC called Orgacha Narang. And this exploration goes very promising, which is very good news, in particular at this time where almost 60-70% of these minerals are produced only in China. So we will be competitive, hopefully. Another good news why the foreign direct investment comes to the country is there is a Harmakte deposit, which is 120 kilometers away from Oyu Tolgoi, but we also call it sometimes the second Oyu Tolgoi. So it will be another huge project for the south of the country, and it will be new mining center. The South Gobi will be. The other thing is also Mongolia government is paying more attention to balance the whole country's interests and the local interests. And in the above mentioned law draft, they are giving more shares to locals so that they benefit from the place where they have been herding their animals. Now there is a mining. So this kind of balances are taken now. Etc. And there are several other things that in terms of our knowledge increase, technology, skills. Now Mongolians learn to work with more. Mongolians have experience working with, for example, hard rock mining, not like placer mining before. So, and with OT, operation starts underground. The producing starts, then Mongolia will be one of the substantial largest player of copper of the copper market. So all this together, I hope, because I was in this PDAC several times, and these are the news they were expecting for many years. So I hope foreign direct investment comes to mining industry of Mongolia as before. And the only thing is, we need to have more good governance, more ecologically friendly, and social consensus with the locals. So in that conditions, Mongolia will go again very bright star on the mining world map.
Sounds exciting. Thank you, Mr. Jargalsahan. That wraps our topic for this week, and thank you for watching. We will see you next week.